In 2020, Justin Bieber posted several photos of babies with the hashtag Yummy, which raised a lot of eyebrows for obvious reasons. It wasn't until his single Yummy was released that things started to make sense. Well, sort of, because what did babies have to do with an extravagant feast and wealthy old men? Nothing, right? That's why, within a month of the song's release, conspiracy theories blew up the internet, with many believing that Justin Bieber was trying to hint at the Pizzagate theory. Yes, the conspiracy theory that surfaced around 2016 during the presidential campaigns of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, which emerged when the emails of Hillary's campaign manager, John Podesta, were hacked. To understand why some people connected Yummy to Pizzagate, here's the short version of what those hacked emails supposedly revealed. First, certain words were interpreted as secret codes. For example, pizza meant children, hot dog meant boys, and pasta meant girls. Why? Because the emails contained repeated phrases like, "I want pizza at this time," or "hot dogs for dinner," and forums like 4chan and Reddit concluded that elites must use code words to refer to their dirty work. Second, some of the so-called brightest minds in the country came up with the idea that children were being held in the basement of the Comet Ping Pong Pizzeria, and that Democratic politicians would call the restaurant to order something disturbing, like pineapple pizza. And finally, years later, when Yummy was released, people concluded that not only was Justin Bieber confirming the Pizzagate theory, but he was also hinting that he had been one of the children involved in the network. But how did just one song make so many conspiracy heads explode? It all started with this bargain bin John Podesta and his obvious resemblance to the real one. From there, people started dissecting the video, noticing weird things like most of the diners being wealthy older people eating grotesquely, surrounded by food that looks anything but appetizing, almost as if they're enjoying something only they would call yummy, while the rest of us look on with disgust. Then there's the fact that there are kids providing the night's entertainment.
Weird.
And to top it all off, there's Justin Bieber himself on a plate, but not just any Justin, an underage Justin with the word yummy underneath. This was interpreted as him being served up like a piece of meat for the Hollywood elite since he was very, very young. As if that weren't enough, Justin had promoted his song with the word yummy made out of none other than pizza, which, to conspiracy theorists, was like finding the holy grail of conspiracies. All of this, plus the photos of babies on his Instagram and the over-the-top promotion he gave to the song, created the perfect recipe for Justin to gain the sympathy he'd never had before. Suddenly, everyone believed he was an SA survivor exposing the industry's biggest secret. And the truth is, it was easy to believe that conclusion because sadly, there was plenty of evidence of the sexualization Justin was subjected to from the time he reached fame at just 15.
Would you rather have to be naked on stage during one full song, or drink a cup of blended worms? Answer, Justin Bieber.
I have like little girl fans. I can't.
How could anyone forget all those moments he was touched without his consent in front of crowds that seemed to enjoy his discomfort, or when they'd push him to talk about sex, as if it were even remotely normal to ask that of a kid, for fuck's sake.
See, my parents never gave me this talk.
Okay.
So why don't you give me the sex talk?
I feel uncomfortable right now.
Oh.
Why do you want to know the sex talk from a 15-year-old boy? That's pretty weird.
Suddenly, it made sense why Justin had acted like such a spoiled brat, possibly as a way to reject all the misery fame had brought him. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't okay to spit on his fans, or to egg his neighbor's house, or to pee in a mop bucket at a restaurant, or to punch a fan, or to write in the guest book at Anne Frank's house. She would have been a believer, but at least it became obvious he was struggling, even if it didn't excuse his behavior. But how much of this is actually true? It's hard to say, because Justin never admitted that Yummy revealed anything about a trafficking ring, and he never confirmed being an SA victim. In fact, he said the song was about his wife.
What were you thinking of when you wrote that yummy?
Yeah. My sex life.
Okay. That's what I thought it was.
What does seem strange, though, is that while the lyrics of Yummy are pretty simple, the video suggests something else entirely. The bizarre dinner scene, filled with unsettling visuals, feels completely unrelated to romance or sexuality. In fact, the video almost seems to be dropping hints about child exploitation in the industry, especially that disturbing shot of a young Justin on a plate. It's possible, too, that the photos of babies posted with the hashtag Yummy were Justin reflecting on his own experience in the industry, remembering how, as as a 15-year-old, he would get comments from men nearly 60 years old saying things like, "This kid was beautiful, like a woman can be beautiful, and men rarely are." In other words, this wasn't some dark, twisted conspiracy from the mind of M. Night Shyamalan that Justin was out here trying to expose. Instead, he was speaking up about issues that keep getting brushed under the rug until another child star grows up and finally tells their story. Issues like child exploitation, the hypersexualization of minors, constant pressure to perform, long work hours at the cost of a real childhood, and the toll that fame takes on young mental health.
People don't want to talk about it, and they don't want to go there because it's revealing, and it was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second.
We've seen time and again what fame does to child stars. Who could forget Britney Spears' breakdown or the downward spirals of Macaulay Culkin and Amanda Bynes? The media drains these kids dry, discards them when there's nothing left, and then circles back later like vultures, feeding on whatever remains of their broken lives. Justin Bieber is one of many who have spoken out about how hard it was to handle fame at such a young age, and I'd guess there's still a lot he keeps to himself. Terry Crews exposed one of the most taboo open secrets of all, the abuse of men. Although others had spoken about it before him, what set Terry apart was the way he defied stereotypes. As a big, muscular black man with an intimidating presence, he represented everything people assume could never be a victim. Yet, by coming forward, he revealed a side of vulnerability that society rarely acknowledges. In 2017, Terry decided to shatter these stereotypes by speaking out. He posted a series of tweets describing the abuse he suffered at the hands of a top Hollywood executive, something that left many shocked. "This whole thing with Harvey Weinstein is giving me PTSD. Why? Because this kind of thing happened to me. My wife and I were at a Hollywood function last year, and a high-level Hollywood executive came over to me and groped my privates. Jumping back, I said, 'What are you doing?' My wife saw everything, and we looked at him like he was crazy. He just grinned like a jerk. I was going to kick his ass right then, but I thought twice about how the whole thing would appear. 240 lbs, black man stomps out Hollywood honcho would be the headline the next day. Only, I probably wouldn't have been able to read it because I would have been in jail. So, we left. Shortly after, Terry took the step of formally identifying his attacker as Adam Bennett, the head of WME's talent division, by filing an official complaint. However, the story only went viral once he shared his experience on national television.
I'm looking at him, and he's basically staring at me, and he's sticking his tongue out, and it's just overtly sexual kind of tongue moves. And I'm sitting there like, it's a party, it's packed, the whole thing, and I'm looking like, is this a joke? I mean, I don't understand. It was actually so bizarre. And he keeps coming over to me. He comes over to me. I stick my hand out, and he literally takes his hand and puts it and squeezes my genitals, and I'm jump back like, hey. And he's like, and he's still licking his tongue out and all this stuff. And I go, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then he comes back again. And he just won't stop. And I really got forceful, pushed him back. He bumps into all the other party goers, the whole thing. And he starts giggling and laughing. And let me tell you, Mike, I have never felt more emasculated, more objectified.
Terry's confession sparked worldwide attention as he was already a well-established, widely loved star in Hollywood. And although he received a lot of support from his fans, he was also hit by a wave of criticism. If anyone had the body Terry Crews has, they wouldn't allow themselves to get raped. That's soft and gay. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. Any other black man wouldn't stand for this shit. The saddest and, in some ways, unexpected part was that several celebrities joined in to mock and downplay the situation. Among them was 50 Cent, who posted this image showing Terry shirtless with the text, "I got R-worded, my wife just watched," followed by another image of him holding a rose with the text, "Gym time." In the caption, 50 Cent wrote, "LOL, what the fuck is going on out here, man? Terry, I froze in fear. They would have had to take me to jail. Get the strap." But later, he had to explain why he mocked the situation in an interview with Larry King, where he clarified that he didn't intend to make fun of SA victims.
Terry Crews is like the Hulk. This guy's like huge, and he when he gets into a scenario, starts to explain the scenario because he was speaking to the Senate, and the lady asked him, "Well, you didn't do anything. You didn't like like push him off, and I just couldn't get how he said that he didn't, like he froze, like he was afraid.
It became clear just how shocking it was for many to accept that someone who looks like this didn't defend himself more forcefully against someone who looks like this. And things got worse when Nick Cannon and D.L. Hewley joined in on the criticism, adding to the victim blaming Terry was already facing.
Like, to me, if I thought how it happened, I was like, all right, everybody drunk. Everybody like, hey! white dudes grab each other's nuts. That's what the fuck y'all do. No. Y'all like, he's probably like, hey, bro, I bet you want to go grab that big fucking black guy's nuts. And he probably, like, as a prank, did it. That's how I thought it occurred.
I think it's hard for me to think that a dude with all those muscles can't tell an agent to not touch his ass. I don't understand. I think that now everybody's so into this notion that it happened to me too. Hey, motherfucker, God gave you muscles so you could say no.
Terry, of course, found out about all of this and chose to respond in the most mature way possible, showing that he had reached a very high level of understanding on such serious issues.
First of all, if it hadn't happened to me and I heard it, I'd have been like, man, what is this dude talking about? That's why I never got mad. I couldn't get mad at people going, man, what are you doing, man? Big ass Terry Crews.
Not only was he able to put himself in the shoes of the men who minimized his experience, but he also found a new sense of purpose when other men began reaching out, sharing that they too had survived SA.
I cannot count the number of men that came forward. And it was like, man, wrestlers, NFL players, all this. They was like, you know, that happened to me. And they were coming out. I had so many black people come forward and say, thank you. Hey, bro, thank you for coming forward and saying what happened. Right. Because that happened to me.
But this was only the first challenge Terry faced after stepping forward and saying, me too. What came next was even harder when his alleged abuser, Adam Bennett, called him to try and settle things privately.
I get a call. Here, it's him on the line. I'm sorry. I was drunk. I wasn't myself that night. And I said, hey, man, you got to understand the depth of what you did in front of my wife. I said, man, you don't even know how close you got to really being hurt. And I said, you need some help. I said, you need to go get help. And he was like, yeah, okay.
The apology attempt didn't go far as Terry continued to speak out in multiple media outlets, ultimately leading to Adam's temporary suspension from his position at WME. However, the agency made no public statement nor clarified the reason behind this measure. Unfortunately, after only a brief suspension, Adam returned to his same position with his full salary and reputation intact, forcing Terry to take things even further. In December 2017, he filed a civil lawsuit against Adam and WME for SA and emotional distress, a bold and risky move, considering WME wasn't just any agency, but one of the most powerful forces in Hollywood, representing some of the biggest names in the industry, including stars like The Rock, Ben Affleck, and Adam Sandler. This decision quickly set off a chain reaction, drawing out powerful figures who would rather see the issue buried. One of the first to step in was Russell Simmons, a prominent music mogul, who directly emailed Terry, urging him to drop the lawsuit and let the incident go. The email read, "Give the agent a pass. With great love, all things are possible." Terry shared it on Twitter with the message, "Dear Russell, no one gets a pass."
This is what y'all don't know, a lot of people don't know. Russell hangs with them guys. Russell hangs with Adam Bennett. When he emailed me at first, I ignored it, and then all of a sudden he's like, I got zero tolerance for this thing. I'm like, wait a minute, you say you got zero tolerance, but you told me to get a dude a pass when the dude did it to me. I said, that's because abusers protect abusers. This culture protects it. They protect each other like that.
But Terry didn't let himself be intimidated. In fact, he took his experience to the Senate, which gave the case enormous weight as it became part of both the public and political conversation.
As I shared my story, I was told over and over that this was not abuse, that this was just a joke, that this was just horseplay. But I can say that one man's horseplay is another man's humiliation.
Sadly, his case never went to trial, as Adam and Terry reportedly reached a settlement. However, Terry later claimed that his lawsuit was dismissed because Adam had the police on his side. Adam Bennett has been the event chairman of the LAPD Foundation, which raises millions for the LAPD. Anyone wonder why my assault case against him was thrown out by the DA? Yeah, #MeToo. It wasn't until Adam resigned from WME and sent Terry a letter of apology that he was able to find closure from the traumatic traumatic experience. Terry shared the letter on Twitter with the message, "Adam Bennett full apology letter, accepted with his resignation," implying that he only accepted the apology because it came with Adam's resignation. "My intent is to have us both heal from this situation and move forward. To that end, I know that you didn't ask for any of this. Again, I take responsibility for us being here now, together in this situation. I am sorry for all of it." Terry moved on with his life and remained as successful as ever, something rare when you go up against Hollywood's dark side. Jim Carrey went from being one of the biggest comedy icons of the 90s to being labeled as crazy after sending out some pretty bizarre messages at the time, talking about control and existentialism.
For years now, talk show hosts, people on television, people in sitcoms have been hired by the government to throw you off the track, to distract you, to make you laugh and stuff like that, make you happy and docile so you don't know what's really going on. Don't get me wrong, Jim Carrey is a great character, and I was lucky to get the part. But I don't think of that as me anymore.
When I was younger, I didn't really get what he was talking about, because for those of us who grew up watching The Mask, Ace Ventura, and Dumb and Dumber, Jim Carrey was all about happiness and silliness. But this version of Jim was different. He had something to say, and it felt like he was speaking directly to us, almost calling us out to wake up.
I'm here tonight to blow the lid off it, to be the whistleblower. I'm sick and tired of the secrets and the lies.
Let's remember that this awakening happened around 2014, when his golden era had already been over for almost a decade. During that time, he had to face the same decline all celebrities go through. Can you imagine the impact of going from being loved and admired worldwide to reading headlines like, "Why Hollywood won't cast Jim Carrey anymore?" Going through that kind of rejection led Jim Carrey to an awakening that the industry didn't like at all, because he called them out as an illusion and a trap, something other artists like Marlon Brando had done before, but without being quite as disruptive.
Fuck you. I don't want to be this character anymore. I don't want to hold up this avatar that you've created in the world. It's too much for me.
In a time when being famous is one of the most common goals people chase, Jim Carrey exposed the darker side of success and asked the world directly, how much of yourself are you willing to lose to achieve fame? He realized that the version of himself he had been living wasn't truly him.
Jim Carrey was a less intentional character,
right?
Because I thought I was just building something that people would like, but it was a character. So it's, I played the guy that was free from concern so that people who watched me would be free from concern.
In the early stages of this realization, Jim's frustration was clear. He delivered his message with a raw, almost angry energy, and his interviews often had an edge. He was desperate to rediscover himself while trying to show us who he really was.
I wanted to find the most meaningless thing that I could come to and join, and here I am.
I think people have this perception of you as just being the, funny, crazy guy.
I think they know me.
Many believed it was just tantrums or outbursts because he was no longer one of Hollywood's golden boys, but it's possible he was feeling anger as he realized that the supposed promise of wealth and happiness that came with fame was a lie, and that he was actually more miserable than ever. He even explained later, after finding peace, that the character of Jim Carrey had consumed him so much that he experienced depression because it was just a mask he wore for the audience. But back then, he didn't realize it. He just felt obligated to be the person everyone thought he was.
There was a voice telling me that if I actually didn't score, if I didn't hit a funny line every at least 30 seconds, they would think I was pompous, and they would turn against me.
Something interesting about Jim's case is the way his characters seem to parallel his real life. Take The Mask, for example, which deals with the idea of not being comfortable with who you are and needing a mask to feel good enough. The lesson in the end is about accepting yourself for who you truly are. But perhaps the most striking parallel is The Truman Show, which feels almost eerily accurate to Jim's own life. In the film, Truman's entire life exists solely to entertain the masses, but he doesn't know it. Every aspect of his life is meticulously controlled, and as a result, his personality has adapted to this fake environment. Even as Truman begins to experience paranoia and his life starts to fall apart as he gets closer to discovering that his entire existence is a lie, the audience continues to feed off his suffering. This is something Jim Carrey also experienced firsthand when his girlfriend, Catriona White, took her own life in 2015 using medication that had been prescribed to him. Just like Truman, Jim's personal pain became public spectacle. real, as the media turned his tragedy into another story to consume. Media outlets like TMZ and even the New York Times reported not only the details of White's death, but also the most intimate aspects of her relationship with White, including the suicide note where she mentioned the pain caused by their recent breakup. This fueled the narrative that Jim might have been more responsible for White's death than initially thought, and things worsened when White's parents sued him, accusing him of being involved. They claimed that he had provided the medications she used to take her life and had transmitted oral and genital herpes as well as gonorrhea, which contributed to her emotional distress. Jim strongly denied the accusations and presented solid evidence to defend himself in court, including text messages proving that White knew about the STDs before they started dating. Eventually, all parties reached a settlement, but Jim's devastating experience with the media pushed him to a much deeper realization about the industry, accelerating and intensifying his awakening. He realized that the same people who had once celebrated his talent, calling him the king of comedy and a box office king, were now the ones labeling him a murderer in sensationalist headlines. He came to understand that his entire life, both his happiness and his tragedy, was reduced to a magazine cover, and that in reality, he didn't truly exist.
And at a certain point, I realized, hey, wait a second, if it's so easy to lose Jim Carrey, who the hell is Jim Carrey?
With this realization came a long and painful process of self-acceptance, something that we need to understand is far from easy. Many celebrities like Kanye West or Justin Bieber have gone through their own breaking points, where the weight of constant public scrutiny and pressure drove them to break down in ways the world couldn't look away from. Jim went through his own breaking point, facing the crushing expectations of fame, but instead of letting it destroy him, he managed to step back, reflect, and ultimately find peace within himself, escaping a fate that has claimed so many others in Hollywood.
I have enough. I've done enough. I am enough.
In the 90s, Rose McGowan was in her prime. She'd starred in Scream and played the lead in Jawbreaker, and her path to success seemed guaranteed. But then she revealed something that put her directly in the sights of one of Hollywood's biggest players. Rose named Harvey Weinstein as her abuser at a time when he was like the P. Diddy of the film industry. In other words, he had the power to make or break your career. In her book Brave, Rose recounts how Weinstein invited her to a business meeting at the luxurious Steen Erickson Lodge. There, he asked her small talk questions about her career, but kept interrupting to say, "There's a jacuzzi in my suite." When the conversation ended, Weinstein offered to walk her out, but as they passed by the jacuzzi room, he stopped her and said, "This is the jacuzzi room." She didn't know what to make of it, so she just nodded, but suddenly he pushed her inside and started taking off her clothes. From here, I'm quoting directly from her book. Viewer discretion is advised. I'm picked up and placed on the edge of the jacuzzi. I am naked, up to my knees in the hot water. He pushes me up against the wall. My knees are pressed together. He places his hands on them and pushes my legs apart. His disgusting tongue is inside of me. Oh my God. Tears roll down my face. The water is splashing because he is grabbing himself underwater. One hand holding me, his other holding it. I pretended to have an orgasm. I moan loudly, over and over and over, tears falling down my face, mingling with the sweat of the room. He moans loudly. Through my tears, I see his semen floating on top of the bubbles. The fake orgasm works. He seems satisfied, and he sets me down. My legs feel like jelly. He tells me to get dressed. I don't remember much else from that day other than getting a plane ticket and going home. The monster heard I left town and kept trying to call me. He left me messages telling me I was his new special friend. He named other big actresses who worked with him, who won Oscars, and said they were his special friends too. Rose describes how, in the days that followed, she went to a photo shoot with Ben Affleck, her co-star in the movie Phantoms. She recalls that she couldn't stop crying, and Ben asked her what was wrong. She only replied that she had met with Weinstein in a private meeting, and he responded, "God damn it, I told him to stop doing that." In that moment, the realization hit her like a bucket of cold water. They knew. Everyone knew. Turns out, even in 1997, this was an open secret in the industry. Sadly, it seemed everybody in Hollywood on the business side knew that if you got summoned to a meeting, it was probably going to go differently than you expected. She even called her manager to tell him about it, but he tried to comfort her by saying to look at it as something that would boost her career. Disgusted, she kept searching for legal help, but the lawyer she contacted bluntly told her, "You are an actress. You've done a sex scene. You'll never win. You're done." However, Harvey found out she was seeking legal help, so his legal team reached out to offer her a financial settlement. They offered her $100,000 to avoid a public scandal. Rose accepted the money, but didn't sign a confidentiality agreement, which allowed her to keep speaking about it openly.
I didn't take money for what happened to me. I took money because it's my only way of saying, literally my only way of saying, I did not like this. I did not want this. This was not consensual. Get off me. no, stand back. That was it. This was my only recourse. And in my child's brain, I thought $100,000 was a lot of money.
However, Rose stayed silent about it for years, knowing she had everything to lose and wanting to keep her career alive. Sadly, her silence wasn't enough for Harvey, who immediately labeled her as difficult. This was later confirmed by Peter Jackson, who had wanted to work with Rose and Ashley Judd on The Lord of the Rings. I recall Miramax telling us they were a nightmare to work with, and we should avoid them at all costs. At the time, we had no reason to question what these guys were telling us, and as a direct result, their names were removed from our casting list, Peter said. Rose's career was never the same after this, and things only got worse when she began speaking out more generally, accusing the industry of silencing women and protecting abusers, causing many to label her as crazy.
And I knew if I had just come out in some little story, I would have been crushed. They painted me as if I was erratic and crazy for years, and it would just go into their playbook, so I had to wait and I had to bide my time.
20 years after signing the settlement with Harvey, Rose broke her silence publicly when the New York Times published an extensive report that included Ashley Judd's testimony and documented the numerous non-disclosure agreements Harvey had used to buy his victims' silences.
Were there times during the 20 years where you thought, I'm going to break my silence, I'm going to come forward?
Nope.
Why?
People were too stupid. The language and media was not anywhere close to where it needed to be.
This investigative piece by Jodi Kantor and Megan Toohey was crucial in giving all those who had suffered at Harvey's hands the courage to come forward. One of the actresses who joined the movement was Gwyneth Paltrow, who revealed that when she was 22, Harvey had hired her to star in Emma. She recalled that he invited her to his suite at the Peninsula Beverly Hills for what was supposed to be a work meeting. Once there, Harvey asked her to give him a massage, claiming he was very tense from all the work pressure. She declined and left in a hurry, feeling extremely uncomfortable and worried about her career, which was just starting. She later told her then-boyfriend, Brad Pitt, about the incident. Furious, Pitt confronted Harvey backstage at a Broadway premiere. It seems Pitt grabbed him, pushed him against a wall, and threatened him.
He said, if you ever make her feel uncomfortable again, I'll kill you. And Harvey was never inappropriate with me again.
Wow. Salma Hayek also published an article titled, Harvey Weinstein is My Monster Too, where she described the nightmare she endured working with him on the film Frida. She recounted all the times she had to turn down his inappropriate advances. No to opening the door to him at all hours of the night, hotel after hotel, location after location, where he would show up unexpectedly, including one location where I was doing a movie he wasn't even involved with. No to me taking a shower with him. No to letting him watch me take a shower. No to letting him give me a massage. No to letting a naked friend of his give me a massage. No to letting him give me oral sex. No to my getting naked with another woman. No, 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 no. A total of 80 women publicly accused Harvey of harassment, SA, and rape. Rose McGowan became the face of the movement, not only as one of the first to speak out, but also for her activism on social media against Hollywood's culture of abuse, something that, at the time, was like opening Pandora's box.